What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 63, Fixing the Game of the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson. We got a lot going on today, and surprisingly, I actually told Kylan to take out some NFL topics because I thought there was some other stuff that was more prevalent. So that tells you all the exciting stuff that's been happening in the sports world right now. We got some MLB, which we don't normally talk about. We're going to cover the Four Nations tournament in hockey. Of course, we got some NBA. We have all the all-star games that were happening this weekend. We do have a little bit of NFL in there mixed in, but this is gonna be a quick one. I got to be off by 12:30, so we'll zip through this. So make sure to give us a follow on our socials. I'm M_India_Miller. Kylan is Kylan W. Watson. I know I was tweeting last night during the Four Nations tournament. You all know that hockey is my second favorite sport, so I was very much enjoying this weekend. It's been awesome.
Everybody knows what Kyla was doing this week.
Yeah. So we were in different we were following different sports this weekend. So we'll both have some stuff to talk about, but we're gonna get right into it. Talking some MLB. So the Athletic and Yahoo Sports are reporting that the MLB and ESPN have mutually agreed to end their TV deal after this season. And it's MLB is such a weird one. Again, talking about hockey, like I love that any game that I can't get here because I'm a Capitals fan, I can just go on ESPN Plus and watch my Capitals fan. I love that. Now, and MLB has always been kind of the weird one where they have so many of their own little networks. I know that again, as a Nationals fan, it's been kind of a pain because we've been on the same network as the Orioles forever. And so if the Orioles are playing, we don't get to see the Nats unless you're local. So it's, I think that because there's also so many games, they're moving more towards the local media, I'm assuming is kind of what this contract is doing. Now, again, if you look at ESPN, they have I wouldn't say a monopoly, but they do so many sports. So I completely understand this kind of this shift, this wanting to move away from ESPN and moving towards something that does more of just baseball, having like more of the Yes networks and Nesson and things like that. Kylan?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I was surprised at this, but I also was not surprised just because ESPN doesn't really dedicate any time to MLB. Now, right now, that doesn't really matter, but like come next month, for those of you baseball fans, when spring training games actually start, but it's not going to take precedent, especially on ESPN over basketball, over the combine, even though I think the combine is irrelevant. Over the combine, over all of that stuff that comes over NBA and everything else. And I think that baseball finally stood up because I think ESPN has looked at them as a little brother for way too long. I mean, the NHL went through this too, and that's why they left and went to Turner. Like, even though I think that was dumb too, but it seems to be working out for the NHL. But I just think this is getting into into a question we're gonna have in a few minutes. Like, if you are a network and you think that you can just continue to little brother these sports because you want to focus on specifically football, because that's what ESPN has been mainly focusing on, and I think that's why the NBA was so frustrated too, and why you see Disney making such an effort to make sure that, even though I don't think they're doing it well, to cover basketball as much as they can, because they know in a minute, just like they did. Morgan knows I was warning WB and Disney about this months ago because I have no sources at the NBA, but I know how Adam Silver thinks. He's a lawyer. So to him, if you're not giving him what he wants, he's going to leave. And that's what WB found out. WB put the challenge out there saying they didn't need the NBA, and Adam Silver said, bet. Then guess who was crawling on their knees suing the NBA to try and see if they can get the thing, all right? Now, ESPN is not going to do that because they think they don't need a thing. They've got a rude awakening coming in a minute. So, like, I'm of the mindset that good for the MLB because you need to find networks. especially with as desperate as NBC, Disney, and all these other things are to have things on their streaming networks. Now's the time to strike. I mean, the NBA struck while the iron was hot, got a $76 billion deal. So I mean, I'm sure Amazon and Netflix would love to have some baseball games and construct a whole program around baseball. For the people who like baseball, baseball is like my third favorite sport. But I don't really start paying attention to baseball until around the summer. But for those people that are baseball fanatics, I'm sure they would love for it to be on Netflix or Amazon or something else because
And I'm wondering if this is a sign because MLB does have their own network, like MLB Network, which is great and does do a pretty good job. So I'm wondering if this is, they might as well, kind of like what you're saying again, and kind of going back to what I was saying, ESPN does too much. They have too many things. They're spread too thin. They can't do anything special for baseball. So the MLB's thinking, okay, we might as well just do it in-house. We don't have to pay for you guys, whatever. We'll just do everything in-house. We'll spend a little bit more money on it. And then we'll get if this is going to be on streaming anyway, we'll get the revenue for people signing up for MLB Network. And we'll do it how we want it. We'll make it special. We have these connections with all the teams. We have no restrictions. It's our network. So, kind of what we see with some of the stuff that golf has been doing as well. Golf, PGA has been doing some of their own internal stuff. And of course, they're going to have to reach out and kind of do, what Amazon maybe is doing slightly, having like a big network, help them do it. But because they've been doing it for so long, I don't know if they would even need to do that. I think that Probably they could honestly do so many of this on their own.
They just need a streaming partner. That's all they need.
Yeah. And we'll see who that is, probably in the next coming months. But moving on, will more sports leagues follow the MLB's lead and end their contracts because of minimal coverage on that network? Obviously, football is not. But I don't know. I think that everybody else is pretty set right now. I think that, sorry, I'm like shoveling down my breakfast. But I think that we saw it with hockey. Like I was saying earlier, ESPN actually does a nice job with hockey. I'm assuming you don't watch a ton of hockey, but generally, like if you can't get to so like when I want to go in and watch a Caps game, I'll go on to ESPN and I have two options. I can watch the local Caps broadcast or the local team that they're playing's broadcast, which is awesome. So I get to watch my brother's broadcast, the one that he's working on, with our Capitals commentators, our Capitals halftime show on ESPN because it's covered by a local network. Again,
that's how the NBA has it set up too.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. I like that a lot. And then if it's a major game, sometimes it's on ESPN, sometimes it's on the ESPN main channel, sometimes it's on NHL Network main channel, sometimes it's on TNT, whatever it is. But if I wanted to sit down and watch every single Capitals game, I could. And that's awesome. And I love that aspect of it. And I think that, these sports that have so many games, basketball, baseball, hockey, you have to have something like that because it is unrealistic that every game is going to get the most important blah, blah, blah. And I know that every game for your team is the most important game of the night, but realistically, that's just not possible. Specifically, I mean, I know and we'll like talk about basketball or whatever, but specifically like right now, like March Madness is like college basketball games are so much more important right now than NBA games are because we're so close to the tournament, right? It's the end of their season. So those games are going to get promoted above the NBA games or the hockey games. And, as we get down to the wire, each sport gets elevated as we get closer to the playoffs. And that's just the nature of the beast. But if you're not a college basketball fan, or you're not a basketball fan at all, and you want to be watching hockey, you should still have that option to be able to watch whatever you want to watch whenever you want to watch it.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that this is going to lead. I feel like to a lesser extent, a lot of these leagues are following what the NBA just did. Again, I hate to make this all about the NBA, but I feel like, we kind of saw this, right? Because I was one of the few reporters on this that the NBA was going to dump WB because I had no sources on that, right? And it turned out to be true, right? So I feel like, a lot of these leagues, especially the big four, are looking at it and saying, well, look, on First Take, on First Things First, on whatever these networks are, right? I'm trying to cater to a younger audience, and or whatever, I'm trying to get younger because I'm going to get into this more, but the average hockey audience is 49. So the hockey and baseball have the same amount of 50-plus-year-olds. The only thing hockey is like appealing to is, and Morgan's a great example of this because since 2022, they've been doing very, very well with 20-year-old and up women. So that's the one thing that they have over baseball. So that's great for hockey. But, if the average, and baseball is a perfect example of this, if your average, if the minimum age of your audience is 49, you got to do something to get younger. Yeah. And you can't be the little brother in comparison to ESPN and everything else.
And I think the big difference with hockey too, I think is what's hard with that is that hockey is one of those sports that like is kind of ingrained in you by your parents. Like if your parents like hockey, you're going to watch hockey. But if your parents don't watch hockey, you aren't, because it's not like baseball is just a sport. And I don't know why this is different than NHL or NBA, to be honest with you. And maybe it's because it's outside, it's during the summer, but like I have friends that would go with me to baseball games that have never seen a baseball game before, don't care, we'll go watch a game, go, eat a hot dog, have fun. But I would never be able to convince a friend to buy, and granted, hockey tickets are way more expensive and so are basketball, but I would never be able to convince a friend to be like, hey, like, let's go see this hockey game if they're not like an actual hockey fan, you know what I mean? Whereas right. Baseball has that vibe of like, it's just fun, we're gonna go. And I think that, again, we'll talk about the Four Nations stuff in a little bit, but hockey did something incredible this weekend, and they, of all the sports, somehow they managed to get it right. And I cannot even imagine, I'm sure I'll see if the numbers have come out yet, but for that game last night, I can't imagine how many streams or how many viewers that game had last night. I mean, it had to have.
Well, the last one only had 10 million, so we'll see.
Yeah, but people didn't know it was going to be this big. Like I think last night, for hockey, it has to be one of the highest.
It'll be
stream.
It'll be the highest. It'll be the highest stream thing. But again, we'll see.
But they did something right. They made people who aren't interested in hockey watch.
Right.
Like Dan and I sat down and watched that game last night. Like I can't tell you the last time Dan watched a hockey game that wasn't like Stanley Cup final, Game 7, whatever,
right.
Or watching the Blackhawks when Connor was first on the team, So, and it was funny. We were walking when Dan was walking the dogs. He was like, everyone is watching the game. Like you can see in people's living rooms, and like everybody has that game on, just because one, they did it on a night where wasn't a ton of sports on, and people cared. They made people care. So, I think we're kind of getting off topic, but I think, and you know how I feel about this. I think that the more companies that broadcast games, the better, because it makes everybody better. Competition is a good thing. If you just have one sports conglomerate that does everything, they're going to do it badly, because they're going to do it poorly because they have that option to do it poorly, right? Because there's no other options. Well, if sports teams and network and conferences and leagues have other options, then you have to up your game, or else they're going to switch and move somewhere else. And what I think we'll start to see with this is contracts becoming shorter. Like we're not going to see any of these like ACC kind of contracts where it's 15 years, whatever. No, they're going to be short contracts, 2-3 years, with obviously like an option to renew, whatever. But nobody's going to want to get locked into something where there might be something better on the other side.
Yeah, I just think, and you kind of touched on my opinion. I think you're going to see a lot more opt-outs now, especially if you are a league. If you are not the NFL and the NBA, you are going to think about, and even the NBA just did this, right? You're going to think about, hey, I need to be somewhere with somebody that's going to make me the priority. Like, I know the majority of my fans don't really care about what's going on in football outside of like their local team if they live in a big market. They don't really care about the NFL. So I want somebody who's going to prioritize my league. I don't want to watch a show in the morning, right? Again, like if you're baseball, you're trying to get younger. Like, why why are people not talking about baseball 24/7 like they talk about the NBA and the NFL, right? Why is it only when, like what happened just a minute ago, when the Yankees dropped that dumb policy, right? That's been around since Steinbrenner was alive, right? They dropped the beard and the facial hair policy. Why is that the only time when you hear about baseball, right? Or when it's time to get drafted, or when it's college baseball, right? So like ESPN kind of did this to themselves. And there's a lot of networks that are going to do this to themselves. WB did it to themselves with the NBA. Like any basketball head, like if you watch this show, you've heard me and Morgan go back and forth. A lot of you I know are upset because I've said that only casuals watch Inside the NBA, and I keep being proven right every time. So I am of the mindset that this is what is going to happen. You're going to see more opt-outs. You're going to see more shows be loaned out to other networks. You're going to see, I've been warning ESPN and WB about this with the NBA. I'll warn anybody else. Like if you have one of the big four and you're not giving them what they want, expect them to dump you. And you won't be, and most of y'all are too proud to come in here and beg and be on your knees like WB was. But like, don't think the NFL won't do it. Like we're already hearing rumors about how Fox and CBS are about to get screwed because they love Netflix so much. And Netflix is going to bid on a Sunday afternoon football package. So Fox and CBS better be on their P's and Q's, because Morgan and I are already hearing about that. All of y'all are hearing about that if you saw it on X, if you've been on X this week. So, I mean, the NFL isn't immune either. Like, they want to be number one. And so if you are not, this is what I said. I said this when the NBA got that contract. I said this before I even knew the numbers. A lot of people, what this is a reaction to the NBA being able to get $76 billion, even though everybody says the product sucks, but they somehow get the biggest deals. This is what it is. Like these networks want that money, and they don't have the NBA audience, so they have to do what they need to do to artificially inflate those numbers. So moving right along, I mean, unfortunately, we said more of this would happen and we would keep y'all abreast, but 7 more massage therapists have accused Justin Tucker of inappropriate behavior during massages. And I think at this point, Morgan's more the DMV resident than I am, but I think at this point, the Ravens need to stop being silent and figure out what they're going to say. You're on mute, Morgan, so no one can hear you. Morgan, you're on mute. No one can hear you.
Oh, sorry, the dogs are barking. I'm currently on the Ravens Twitter page, and I'm trying to see if they have said anything. I think I would have heard if they had.
They have not. They have not said anything.
You know what? I understand it's the off season. I understand that you need to take your due diligence. There's one thing between taking your due diligence and just putting out a statement that says we are aware of the situation that's unfolding. We are doing everything that we can to mediate the situation and to find out the truth. Whatever, something like that. I'm sure you have a lawyer put it in more lawyer speak than what I just said, but saying silent is
bad.
Bad. And again, like I maybe just retire and leave the spotlight. And again, like we were saying, like he didn't have his best year of his season, of his, he's getting older. It wouldn't be abnormal to retire, but these people are egomaniacs. All professional athletes are in some capacity, and I genuinely don't mean that in a mean way. I mean that you kind of have to think you're the best, and especially as a kicker, you have to have that really, really, really strong mental toughness. But this is unfortunately how these things go. We don't know if all of these allegations are true. Even if one of these allegations is true, that's one too many, right? So, right. It's hard. I'm sure the NFL is doing everything in their power to figure out what's going on. I'm sure there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes. The NFL is currently right now gearing up for the combine. So I honestly wouldn't expect them to do anything until at least the end next week, because the Combine is such a crazy event. Having worked it the last couple years, it takes so much organization that I'm sure they are like, we cannot even deal with this right now, and that they probably will start to handle it in the off season, in the actual off season. You know, I don't know what the Ravens are going to do. I don't know what the NFL is going to do. They do have a precedent set, you know.
Right. I mean, you would think, though, not to cut you off, you would think, though, that the Ravens would be better at this after the Ray Rice situation. Now, granted, I'm not comparing this to Ray Rice at all, but after the Ray Rice situation, you would think that you would have all these teams should have like a crisis management, PR, comms people to be like, to put out a basic statement like Morgan just said. Hey, we're aware about this. We are investigating and doing our due diligence. And at this time, we will not be taking any more questions on this matter as we investigate, and leave it at that, right? And I get it. You're all at the combine, but you can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, the Ravens have known, there's no way, right? The Ravens haven't known about this, right? You know, I have not reported for the Baltimore Banner, but as somebody that's done reporting, so is Morgan. Like, there's no way, like, you know, they give you basic time. You know, if something like this happened at the White House or for a politician, so there's no way that the Ravens didn't have a heads up that this was coming, right? They knew about that story, so they definitely had time because it was their local paper. So there's no way they didn't know. And these are, you know, I don't want to get into it, but these are local Baltimore area massage people that, from what I understand from the reporting, that Ravens players, Ravens staff, all of them use these people. So, like, you know, we're getting into the nitty gritty of this, but I'm just up to of the point, just in basics of this, that there's no way the Ravens had no idea this was coming, right? And you could use the, you know, I'm not coming at Morgan anyway. I mean, they can use the combine as the excuse if they want to, but at this point, you got PR people, you got crisis staff, like you're one of the grade A organizations. You came back from the Ray Rice situation. So again, you should have people that can handle this because you went through the Ray Rice situation. Now, again, what's going on with Justin Tucker is not as bad as Ray Rice, but it does damage to the brand of the Ravens. And so I don't know why the Ravens haven't said something by now. Even something through a source, right? Through Stephen A. Smith, do something, leak something to say, hey, we're investigating. Like, it's not that hard. Like, politicians do it. There's no way the Ravens can't, hey, yo, like, you know, it don't even have to be an official statement because we know the NFL is not above giving a reporter, especially one that's, you know, in their good graces, like a leak, essentially, or, and just saying, hey, we're investigating and you can say this on your show and leave it at that, right? Like, you know, I know the combine is happening. I know scouting is happening, but you know, you do not have your comms people doing that. So I just don't understand why they haven't said something.
Yeah. No, I agree. All
You
right,
know,
so moving on. This came out yesterday. This is interesting. I mean, hope everything is okay for Victor Wembanyama, but he's off the rest of the season because of a deep vein. I think it's thrombosis is how you say it. It's a blood clot. It's pretty much, he has a blood clot in his right shoulder. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. I didn't even know he was this kind of at work, Kylan?
No, this just happened post All-Star break. They just found out because they say he was pretty lethargic the last few days. It hadn't really been doing anything during the All-Star weekend or whatever. And so they kind of thought that was weird for somebody who's 20, 21 years old, and found out it was blood clots. I've never had a blood clot, but for my friends that have, they say the same thing, like makes you lethargic. It's a good thing that they found it because it could have, you know, killed. Worst case scenario, it could have killed them. So it is a good thing.
Well, yeah, because blood clots can move, you know, close to your brain, can move up towards your brain, which is scary.
Yeah, so it's a good thing that they found this. Speedy recovery to him. I know Brandon Ingram dealt with this early in his career, and he's still playing. So hopefully it's nothing serious for him. But yeah, very unfortunate for the Spurs. You know, that this happened, but good for his overall health that they found this so early. So my reaction to this is a crazy injury. Obviously nothing that he has real control over. But it's good that they found it early. Good that the Spurs medical staff took it seriously. And we want to see Victor Wembanyama play for a long time. He's only 2021.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that. It's unfortunate for the Spurs because they're doing all this stacking. They've got Stephon Castle, who had a really good showing at the dunk contest. They've got a lot of winning pieces coming along, and now the main piece that this is all constructed around is through no fault of his own done for the season because his body kind of failed him. So I'm of the mindset that this just means that the Spurs, Stephon Castle, and them get to show their skills, build that chemistry with De'Aaron Fox, and do the best that they can to make a play in or make the playoffs. Because I think the Spurs are basically playing with house money anyway. I think that they were probably going to make the playoffs this year. But now, you get to come back with Victor Wembanyama, probably a good, maybe not top 10, but a good first round pick as well. So, I think that they are building their team that's building, but I think this sucks for them because they were making all this push for this year, and it seems like this is going to be pushed to next year. So it's kind of upsetting for them in that way.
Yeah, we'll you gotta let Steph Castle grind it out for the rest of the season, win his rookie of the year, and then
I know you're not bad about seeing Steph Castle dropping 40 plus. So
no. So, but thoughts and prayers out to Wembanyama, and we hope that he's feeling better and that they get it all figured out. And so, should the NBA reevaluate that 65 game minimum rule for awards? No, I don't think so. I mean, hell, the NFL pretty much, if you miss one game, you're disqualified from any any awards. I think that injuries are part of the game, and you get injured, and unfortunately then that means that you're not going to win a league MVP or something that season. And I don't think it's half of the games you have to play, right? How many full games are there for NBA?
82. So this is more than half.
A little more than half. But again, I don't think that that's a bad thing. And you're the NBA guy, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but
you already know I disagree because we talked about this rule when it first came, but we were on opposite sides of it. So I disagree just because I feel like, and if you watch my Twitter yesterday afternoon, you saw me calling people, a lot of my national media folks out for it because now everybody cares about this 65 game minimum rule now that it's affecting Victor Wembanyama, Luka Doncic, when it was just affecting Joel Embiid and Kawhi Leonard, no one cared. But now, people care. I mean, I tweeted, keep that same energy, right? Because, if you ain't have no sympathy for Joel Embiid and Kawhi Leonard, why are you trying to change the rule now? Like I said before this rule even came that it was stupid. Like if you're the best player, you should get the award. It doesn't matter how many games you played. It's not your fault that, your body failed you. So I'm of the mindset that if you play 82 plus games and coming off of just playing the Olympics this past summer, we've seen it, right? All these players that have played all this basketball are getting injured. Anthony Davis, Luka Doncic, all these players that played over the summer, Giannis Antetokounmpo, that they played a lot of basketball, right? It's not like hockey players who have been banned from playing for their teams for the last 10 years, right? And so all of y'all are juicing this up more than what it should be. But 65 game minimum rule is dumb. It's always been dumb. I understand that you want to make players play, but it's very arbitrary and things like this happen, right? You have blood clots, so now you can't play, and now Victor Wembanyama can't get a supermax, can't get money, right? This is why I disagree with it so much, because a lot of people bring the NFL, NHL, and MLB, but a lot of these players in those leagues don't have money associated with accomplishments, right? Their accomplishments or their incentives is, I need to get 2,000 yards because, it's the NFL and it stands for not for long. So just because you win an award one year doesn't mean you get it. Whereas in the NBA, you have 200, 300, hundreds of millions of dollars on this stuff. And this is why I've said there should not be a 65-game minimum rule, because it's stupid, because as we saw with Luka Doncic, just getting traded cost him $400 million. So I'm of the mindset that if it's so arbitrary that you can do that and cost people money, then you shouldn't have a 65-game minimum rule, because these players need their money, right? I know that there's some players in the other 3 leagues that are upset because they don't get their money. They don't have the pop culture appeal. Hint, hint, PK Subban. You're not relevant outside of the people you date, so no one cares. But I'm of the mindset that a 65-game rule, isn't really something that should be happening in a league where your money depends on for the upper echelon players, these type of awards, these type of accolades. Klay Thompson being the most famous one who had an award, who had, not being on an all-NBA team cost him $300 million. And he's still trying to get his money back. So I feel like this is it shouldn't happen. It was the NBA responding to a problem that was not a problem. And it was just a problem amongst their media partners and the casual sports fans who made this stuff more than what it was. So that's why I'm at with it.
That's fair. That's fair. I think we have different opinions on that. But moving on to something else that was a little bit slightly, I guess, controversial, not really, but Matt McClung wins his 3rd straight dunk contest. This man comes out once a year and wins a dunk contest, then fades back into the G League. So, and yes, I'm salty because he beat Steph Castle, who was doing dunks with no gimmicks, no cars, no nothing, just straight up windmill 180.
The rook needs to learn, man. You gotta have. It's all about entertainment, man. It's not just about the dunk, man. It's like the home run derby. It's not about. It should be about the dunk, but it's about the pageantry. But I think that was a great dunk contest. Steph Castle did really, really well. I think if he was facing anybody that was not the dunk highlight reel that is Mac McClung, he probably wins. He should dunk again. I think he was really good. He's a really entertaining dunker. I think that Mac McClung deserved that award. We finally got a 3-peat after 2 weeks, just as Mac McClung and not the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm of the mindset that this was a great dunk contest. It was so great that it's the first thing in sports, I think, ever to get 1 billion streams online. I mean, if that don't tell you the strength of the NBA audience, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, this is the first billion viewed stream ever. So Mac McClung clearly has crossover appeal, even though, as Morgan says, a joke, but I mean, it's true. He only comes out once a year to save the dunk contest and then fades back into the G League. I think he definitely needs a contract. But I would put him up there as one of the best dunkers, because the dunk contest was dead, and then he came and saved it. And now John Moran is saying he wants to get in it now.
They say this every year right after the dunk contest. Like, oh, I'm going to do it next year. And then they never do.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they get injured. But, I mean, if nothing else, Matt McClung is making your favorite dunker think about getting in this dunk contest. And I want to see it. I think LeBron missed an opportunity not dunking. So I think that they should be in it. But moving right along, Team Shaq wins the new All-Star game, and our reaction to this. I think it was a good All-Star game. It was very competitive. But I think I have a Morgan level complaint about the broadcast, but I'm gonna save that for when we get to he's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. But I thought this was a good All-Star game. I think that the format, while even I was degrading it, I think it worked out well. The Rising Stars being in it really added something to it, especially with the OGs not wanting to lose to the young guys. So I think it was a really good. I think it was a really good format. I think it could be done better. I prefer East versus West because that's what Morgan and I grew up with. But I'm of the mindset that this was a good dunk contest. It got 5 million, 6 million people to watch. It doesn't really. There's not the 7 to 8 million that it usually gets, but it is what it is. It's a holiday weekend. But I thought it was a good contest. Steph Curry got his MVP of the All-Star game in his building, so that was good for him. I think it was a well-done All-Star game. I just only have complaints about the Kevin Hart of it all, the Mr. Beast of it all, and the fact that you could kind of tell that WB has given up on the broadcast, and I'm so happy that NBC gets it next year. And I want to see a real basketball-centered All-Star Game broadcast. So that'll be my mild critiques before we get to what when I go off like Morgan did your last week on Fox. So we'll see. But how do we feel about the new All-Star Game format? Morgan, you got thoughts? I know you didn't watch.
I didn't watch a second of it, so I'm gonna let you go off about it because I think that I disagree as to why the numbers were down. I think that it may have been something else, another sports. I think that the NHL, I think, was probably part of the reason why the numbers were down. And it is dumb to do it on a holiday weekend. I don't know why they chose to do that because, on something that people aren't already like super excited about because of how just not.
They always do. They always do it on President's Day weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
That seems really dumb. That seems really dumb to me. So if I could change anything, I would change it being on President's Day weekend. But Kylan, you go.
Yeah, I thought it was a good format. Like I said, my only complaints were like Kevin Hart having way too much time making jokes when we should have been watching basketball because it's a basketball showcase. I love the halftime show with E40 and them performing, the Bay Area artists. I feel like I say every All-Star game, that's the one thing the NBA does better than any other league is that they actually have entertaining halftime shows, something the NFL could learn from outside of having Kendrick Lamar, Beyonce, and Rihanna doing their shows and Bruno Mars. I feel like this All-Star game format was really good. I just wanted more basketball. And I mean, a holiday weekend is about, the dedication, right? Basketball fans tuned in, hockey fans tuned in to what they tuned into because they don't get to see hockey players go against each other for their country for 10 years. And Morgan wants to go off on that policy of how stupid that is in a minute. But, I'm of the mindset that, the All-Star game looked great. I know that most people, especially hockey fans, they don't get to see their favorite hockey players represent their countries because they're not allowed to be in the Olympics. So, like, as a basketball fan who gets to see it every 4 years or every other summer, depending on if FIBA Worlds is there or not, like, I don't really see a spectacle in that. But, for those of you that do, more power to you. But, I'm of the mindset that this is great. And I think that they can do something better. I don't really know if I want to see a one-on-one tournament, but I feel like, again, that, this gets into our next question. I feel like the All-Star game does not need to be fixed because I feel like what is going on here is there's a battle against nostalgia, right? A lot of people are nostalgic for those games where they saw Allen Iverson and Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and them be like the best four players on the court. And you were still seeing 165 to 105. You were still seeing blowout games even when we were kids, right? It just looked like it was competitive because those players, there's no knock on Michael Jordan and them, they were less skilled than the players that are here now, right? You have unicorns and stuff. You have Steph Curry shooting from half court and making the shot. Like, you have more skilled players now. And so, nostalgia, Morgan's brought this up before, like when you're going up against a battle of nostalgia, you never win. And so the All-Star game is fine the way it is. It is an exhibition. Especially now, I know a lot of people, because they just saw it this summer, they want to see USA versus the world, but you see it every 4 years against in the Olympics. Again, this is not like hockey or baseball or any of these other sports where they don't let the players get into the game. So everybody's thirsty for it. Right. So I'm of the mindset that when you're in a battle against nostalgia, you can't win. And so I think the NBA just needs to lean into it more, lean into the basketball showcase, like lean into those games. Like, I think something that's going to help, the one way to fix the All-Star game is to never let it be on a WB entity ever again. So I'm of the mindset that, and I'm so happy that more people are being vocal about the damage that First Take and Inside the NBA have done to the NBA, to NBA broadcasting, and the way ESPN and WB have damaged it. So I'm glad that more people are being vocal and coming to my side about this now. I'm glad that basketball heads are speaking up about the damage that being on TNT for 20 years, being on ESPN for so many years, and what they've done to the sport that I love, right? They're kind of doing it to college basketball too, making it way more casual than it needs to be. And I get that you want to appeal to casuals, but basketball is not a casual sport. Morgan knows this. She's played it. This is not a casual sport. It's not for casuals. It's for the hardcore. And if you want to make it a casual sport, you can do it the way NBC did it back in the day when we were kids. Like, you want to make it have crossover appeal, then broadcast it that way. But you should not be catering basketball stuff for hardcore people on both sides, NBA, college, and high school, for these casuals. These casuals don't watch. Like, it's not for them. It's for the people who like all-star games. It's the exhibition. And the other well-kept secret is the NBA catches all this flack, but the Pro Bowl sucks so much that they made it flag football. NHL All-Star games suck so much that they had to do a mini Olympics to make it relevant. Baseball All-Star game, they finally got rid of that dumb decision that they did in the later half of our childhood, which is put home field advantage. I don't even know why anybody smart thought that was a good idea. They finally got rid of that. And so, like, I don't think the NBA needs to do anything. Like, the NBA's audience is pretty fixed, right? It does not matter if hockey was going on. You get half of the hockey audience, right? The NBA audience, I think what you need to learn is that the NBA audience, the hardcore audience, is pretty fixed. Like, they will watch the All-Star game over anything else. So all you need to do is really just lean into that. You don't need to be in competition with hockey and what they're doing. And I think that's what everybody's always giving all week. The last 2 weeks, all I've heard is NBA product is dying, but yet they get billion viewed streams, something the NFL wishes it could get for anything, right? Billion streams on a dunk contest. And yet people are like, what's wrong with the NBA? Nothing's wrong with the NBA. The NBA needs to lean on their audience. They need to do, what do we always say, Morgan, in our field? Like, you lean on what you're good at. And what the NBA is good at is getting people to pay attention and having a fixed audience. Like, that's what they have. If you could get 5 million, like, I understand that 10 million people tuned into a hockey event. But if you could get 5 million people to 6 million people to tune in to an all-star game that does not matter, I think you're doing pretty well. So, like, I'm of the mindset that, I feel like the problem is the broadcast partners, and that's how you can fix it. And they've already fixed it. They won't have another exhibition or any real NBA game after this year on TNT. So you won't have to hear Charles Barkley, Reggie Miller, Shaquille O'Neal, or Draymond Green, another he's not him, talking about how bad the product is and crapping on Stefan Castle and the rest of these rising stars, saying they shouldn't be there. Like, you shouldn't have these guys on your broadcast. Hint, hint, NBC, because you hired one of these guys. Why? Go ahead.
I think you said it all. I didn't watch it. I'm not particularly an NBA fan. But I watch when the UConn players are playing. So I did tune into the dunk contest a little bit to watch Steph. But yeah, I just don't find it. I don't know. There's other sports I'd rather watch, which is kind of how I am. So, they'd have to do a lot to win me over for me to sit down and watch a full all-star game. So maybe NBC can do it next year. We'll see. So moving along, Boston Celtics crushed the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm heading it right back over to Kylan.
Oh, man. So this game started out competitive, and then Peyton Pritchard went off for 28 points, hit 8 3-pointers. I don't know what the Sixers were doing, basically leaving him wide open. You would think it was Morgan and I out there instead of a dude who can kill you in his sleep from the 3-point range. So yeah, that was the difference in this game. Boston made 25 3-pointers. The Sixers could only get 8. I mean, you're kind of going to lose a game when you can't hit 3-pointers. But I think otherwise the Sixers have some positives that they could work on. Like, they were able to kill Boston early on by hunting that mismatch with Joel Embiid in the paint or in the free throw line, being able to create open shots. Finally, I guess Nick Nurse has been watching this podcast. He must be an avid podcast watcher and an avid reader of my articles. Because what have I been saying, Morgan? Put Paul George off ball. Put him in that 2-man game. Like, I know the Tyrese Maxey Embiid 2-man game is powerful, but develop that Embiid George 2-man game, and they kind of did it against the Celtics up until Peyton Pritchard went off. And so, the biggest thing here is you can't afford to give Boston 25 out of 54 3-pointers and expect to win that game. And when you do that, you're gonna lose by 20 points. So I am of the mindset that we will find out about the Sixers in these next 10 games. And they have the fourth easiest schedule remaining. So there's no way, unless they absolutely start sucking, that they won't make at least a play-in tournament. So RELAX to those of you that are like doom and glooming over here, like they're not going to out tank the Pelicans. They're not going to out tank Morgan's Wizards. They're not going to have a top 6,
No one
top
can out
8,
tank
top
the
9,
Wizards.
top 9, top 10 pick. Like it's not happening. That pick is all but going to OKC. So I'm just of the mindset that it was bad. It was bad. Sixers defense, great Celtics shooting, and you're going to lose games when that happens. So the other one, Los Angeles Lakers are experiencing mixed results with Luka Doncic. And my reaction to this is this, right? It is time for LeBron James to do, the circle. It's the circle of life in the NBA. Shouts out to my Lion King fans as well. In the NBA, when it is time, and this is where the Lakers are, right? LeBron is still a great player. He looks great next to Luka, but it is time for LeBron James to do what he should have did for AD and what Dwayne Wade did for him when he first came to Miami. It is time for LeBron to call press conference or whatever and just say, now this is Luka's team. He has the keys. He'll be the primary ball handler. I'm going to be off ball. I'm still, this generation's GOAT. But this is Luka Doncic's team. Luka Doncic works better, kind of like Paul George. You're seeing this growing pains in LA too, on ball. And so he needs the ball. Whereas with the Lakers right now, obviously LeBron is the point guard. But it's time for Luka to have the keys to the franchise, have the keys to the offense, and then it'll start working better for the Lakers, right? I mean, it's just time for LeBron to do what Dwayne Wade did to him. And this is not saying LeBron is done. He could probably still win a championship now that he has a younger counterpart, a younger superstar counterpart, and a hungry one in Luka. It's just time for Luka to have the keys at this point, and for LeBron to just be the Dwayne Wade. And that's not a knock, because Dwayne Wade won a few more titles once he did that for LeBron. So it's time for Luka to have the keys. And once that happens, it'll be a way better result for Lakers fans. And I know that there are Lakers fans. Morgan knows them. I know them, who hang on my every word, because y'all look at me as your Lakers inside reporter for some reason, even though I don't live in LA. You noticed that, right? Like, I am not a Lakers reporter. I just know ball. So, I think that's what needs to happen here, and it'll be better. I mean, the Lakers are not, they haven't really had a good start to All-Star, to the post All-Star break, and they're still 5th or 6th in the West. So it's not that terrible for Lakers fans. It could be worse. So moving right along to what Morgan actually wants to talk about. Joe Burrow wants the Bengals to spend that money like the Eagles. Morgan, your reaction to this? Why I get a sip of water?
I mean, of course, every team wants their team to spend money, but unfortunately, he plays for the Bengals, which is notoriously one of the cheapest teams in the NFL. And unless something drastically changes, I don't see that happening. The real reason he's saying that is because he doesn't want to lose T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. And I don't know how you keep both of them this offseason, to be honest with you. I understand it's got to be incredibly frustrating to be a, probably future Hall of Famer quarterback and not be able to, and you've spent every year getting laid flat on your ass because your owner won't pay for a good offensive line, and you spend the first half of every season in contract negotiations with your star wide receivers, so you don't have them, and then are trying to pick up the pieces towards the end of the season. So I very much understand where he's coming from, but I don't necessarily think anything's going to change, if we're going to be really honest.
Well, I think that they'll pick one. They should pick both, but they'll pick one. Probably Chase over T. Higgins, but I mean, they already are saying that they're going to franchise tag Higgins, so they may be able to keep both for a little bit. But I think they should have done what you and I both suggested that they do last summer. They should have signed Jamar Chase, and they should have given him his money last year before AJ Brown signed his, for Devontae Smith signed his, and now look at him, right? So I feel like as far as Joe Burrow is concerned, I feel like he should start looking for the exit signs and look to get to an NFC team. I think our colleague Dom Daniele was very prescient. Like, I've shouted him out before because he was the one that told me this. He said that Mike Brown's cheapness would end up blowing that team up, and that that Chase and Burrow will wind up back with the Saints. And I thought he was crazy, but it seems he might be pretty prescient. I don't know if he'll be right about that Saints part. We'll see about that one. But
as somebody who has been to a lot of training camps and has done them kind of back to back to back, there is a noticeable difference when you are in Cincinnati, and the level of money spent on things is very noticeable. And I'm sure the players notice it. And specifically when players come from other organizations to there and they talk about how things are, I'm sure that's frustrating, especially for somebody like Joe Burrow, who is an incredible football player.
Why Conlon said, if you're one of those top quarterbacks, you shouldn't be in the AFC. like as soon as you get to the exits, as soon as you get your chance, you should. Justin Herbert's going to test this theory. As soon as you get your chance, head for the NFC. So you don't have to have Michael Jordan not stopping you from getting the chip. But Joe Burrow is one of the few people who can say he's beaten Patrick Mahomes when it matters. Now, he hasn't won a championship like Jalen Hurts, but he can say that he beat Patrick Mahomes and got to a Super Bowl. So moving right along, we kind of touched. Morgan already touched on this, so I'll touch on it from my end. I think that they will be able for at least a year to keep both. I feel like they're going to lose T. Higgins. They're going to lose T. Higgins and be able to keep Chase and Burrow together, but not have a defense. And, to answer the latter half of this question, no, their team won't be good. You'll be looking at a lot of top 3, top 4 draft picks, and they'll eventually have to trade Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow does not want to lose. I feel like he got a taste of what his life is going to be like after this upcoming season when they eventually, because T. Higgins is gonna be a wide receiver version of Kirk Cousins. Once they ran out of being able to franchise tag Kirk Cousins, he got out of DC. It's the same that's going to happen here, because I think, and Morgan can correct me if I'm wrong, this will be the second or the third time that they will end up franchise tagging Higgins, right? So eventually,
second, I believe.
Yeah. So they've got. I think this is the last. Right. This is the last. What is it? Is it 2 times or 3 times that you can tag them? I think it's 2, right? And then after that, you have to sign them long term.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, while she looks that up, I believe that this is the last time they can tag T. Higgins, and so this will be the last year that Joe Burrow has a good dual threat wide receiver. And so, like Morgan said, I think the cheapness of the Bengals organization is going to end up getting them. I'm right. We're right. It's only 2 times.
I'm so
sorry. I thought you had it. But yeah, so this is where it's at for them. The cheapness of their owner is going to get them, and it's kind of crazy that this is what Joe Burrow's career is going to be, and Morgan knows I don't like to make declarative statements in sports, but I feel very good making this one. It's over for the Bengals after this year, because I don't think they're going to be able to to pay those 3 players and be able to field a good defense. I don't know if Morgan has anything to add.
I can't find it.
Okay. It's all good.
It just says Higgins' 2025 tag number will be a minimum of $26.1 million, 120% of his 2024 tag number.
Okay. You don't have anything to add on this, right? I think you said your piece, correct?
No, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Kevin Patullo hired as the offensive coordinator for Philadelphia Eagles. I know that there's Eagles fans that are very, very, they're worried about this because they've got Brian Johnson memes, but this is the Eagles coming off of a Super Bowl. they say that Kellen Moore and Kevin Patullo had a lot of feedback with implementing the passing game, implementing and working with Kellen Moore. So, I'm confident that if Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, and Jeff Lurie have confidence in him, then why should not? I mean, they're playing with house money right now. They're coming off of a Super Bowl. And I think that Jalen Hurts has established his rights as a Super Bowl MVP and now a definitive top 3 player in the league to be able to do what he needs to do. And so I think that once you win a ring,
wait, I'm sorry. Have we've gone from top 3 quarterback to top 3 player in the league, Kyle?
Sorry.
That's
top 3 quarterback. My bad. You're right. Top 3 quarterback.
Okay. I'm like
top 5 player in the league. Okay, top 5.
We're including defensive players too.
Okay,
Kylan.
All right, top 5. Yes, top 5. A top 3 quarterback, right? I think he has the right to do that. And
I said top 5. That's as high as I will go with him for right now.
Top 3. I'm going top 3. And he's not 3 or 1. So y'all know where I got him. So I'm of the mindset that this should be a good move for the Eagles, but we'll see. I mean, it's a wait and see. Morgan.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, but I would say that anything that Howie Roseman and that team does right now, anybody that's hired by them, I would say they're probably pretty solid, and I wouldn't worry too much.
Right.
I would say they know what they're doing, and they're building / have built an incredible roster of players and coaches. So I wouldn't be too worried if I were you.
Yeah. So we're moving right along to what Morgan actually wants to talk about. We're going to save these other 3 football topics for next week. But Morgan wants to talk about this, so I'll let her go and be a hockey fan for a minute. Team Canada versus USA. Actually, I'll let Morgan's gonna end because this is her skis. So Team Canada versus Team USA 4 Nations. I said this to Morgan off air. Some of y'all will kind of see me as unpatriotic, but I feel like Team USA was begging for a loss, yesterday with how they were acting. They started really. It didn't become about what it should have been about. Like it's just an exhibition hockey game. We want to beat Canada. We want to do it for the Gaudreau brothers. It wasn't about the important stuff, right? It became about nationalism. We want to beat Canada to show that we're better than them, and that it's funny because like all of y'all, not really all of y'all, but most of y'all who watch this podcast know how I feel about politics and sports. But I think it's kind of funny how everybody's like keep politics out of sports until it's politics you agree with, right? The way this team just went full on right wing and like full on Trump fandom before the game, I was like, yeah, they're gonna lose. So and that's exactly what happened. To me, Team USA lost the mental war here when they started getting distracted by things that shouldn't have been. Like I said, it should have been about we're trying to honor the Gaudreau brothers. It should have been about we're trying to win this game, right? It should not have become about the geopolitical situation. I know that juiced this game up because a lot of y'all were like Team Canada versus Team USA, right? We've seen the Canadian people booing the national anthem. I know how some of y'all feel about that too. But it's something that it should have been, and they were focused on everything else. Morgan knows we talked about this when it came to the Chiefs. I hope y'all seeing the pattern, right? Every team that leans into the whole Trump thing loses. The Chiefs and now Team USA. So like, I'm not making a wider political thing. I'm just saying like we've seen it the last 2 weeks, right? You saw it during the Super Bowl. Like they were shaking hands with him. They were doing all this other stuff. I'm not saying he played any portion into this game. I want y'all to see the pattern, right? They leaned into it. They lost. The Team USA hockey team leaned into it. They lost, right? And Team Canada is just a better team, right? They were the better and more talented team to me. They didn't get distracted, and they kept the main thing. And I know that the hockey fan is going to tell me how wrong I am because I saw her expression about how Team Canada is not as talented.
I am. Yeah.
It's not as talented as USA, but they won the game, so they're more talented than them. As of last night, they were the better team. But go ahead, Morgan.
So I don't normally like just outright straight up disagree with Kylan, but I outright completely disagree with Kylan on pretty much this whole thing. I think that it's hard to put into words what something like this means for hockey players, in a sense that they never get to do anything like this. They, again, Kylan touched on it a little bit at the beginning. They don't get to do, or they haven't in the past gotten to do the Olympics. They don't get to represent their country on a regular basis. And, you know, the NHL is the most diverse league in America, coming for per people playing from different nationalities, different languages. And, you know, I think that this was, they were so proud to represent America and Canada and Finland and Sweden. And again, it's not something that they normally get to do. My husband and I were talking last night. We hope that this doesn't ruin it, because there were injuries, because these players played their hearts out. They played for their country. And I will say, I'm going to just toss this in there. Kylan, you know, disagrees with me. I told him this at the beginning. It was not, I did not see it as being all about Trump. Trump called, the video that went viral was that Trump called the coach, which is very normal. Regardless of if you like the president or not, the president is always going to call the coach of a national team. Biden did it for the Olympics. Trump is doing it now. You know, I'm sure Trump called both the Eagles coach and the Chiefs coach before the game, regardless of if that was taped or shown or if they took the calls. I don't know, but I am sure that, you know, that call was made. And the coach actually said, "Hey, I'm just walking into the locker room right now. Do you want to say something to the guys?" And he said, "Sure." And, you know, he didn't make it. I will say, I am obviously not a Trump fan. I've said this before, but he did not make it political. It was, go out there. You've already done enough for the country. Just go have fun tonight. Go show them who we are, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, regardless of this, how this got started, you know, that first game, Canada versus the US, it wasn't the US that started this. It was Canada. And again, I've also said, I understand that if Canada was saying, we're going to make America our second state and you're all going to become Canadians, we all would be upset because we're Americans. So if you don't know kind of how this started, the first game of the Four Nations, Canada booed it was in Canada. Canada booed the national anthem. And then there were 3 fights within 9 seconds of puck drop, which was awesome for a hockey fan. It's just cool to see these guys be able to represent their countries, be able to represent things bigger than hockey. You know, hockey, Canada and US have a really strong rivalry. Obviously, hockey was created in Canada, but hockey's become really, really strong in the US. You can see the NCAA game getting stronger and stronger. You see hockey becoming more accessible to every kind of income class, even though hockey is really expensive. It's, you know, in especially cold weather cities, it's becoming more accessible for everyone. Throw on a pair of old skates, go skate on a pond, all that kind of stuff. So you know, hockey is struggled with viewership in the past, and that's not a secret. I don't think any hockey fan would tell you that's a secret. One of the reasons that they struggle, I think, is something that I said at the beginning, is that if you're not a hockey fan, if you don't grow up in a household where hockey is on all the time, you don't understand it. It's really fast-paced moving, and, you know, you don't have any connection to any of these players. So I grew up in a household where hockey was huge because my brother works for the Capitals. I went to games all the time. I had a really deep love for hockey, and I still do. And I still watch it. You know, now that football season is over, I'm watching it a lot more. You know, the Caps have a big game against the Penguins on Saturday. Caps are the #1 team in the East right now, which is like super exciting, even though we didn't have a single player represented in the Four Nations tournament, which is fine though, because we're all going to be well rested while all the other star players are, you know, feeling it a little bit. But I just think that this was an ingenious way to make people that don't care about hockey care about hockey. Because again, you watch it in the Olympics, but you don't know any of the names. They're all amateurs. They're all college kids. And that's awesome. And we still care, of course, if US gets to the finals. We're still going to watch it. We still want US to beat Canada. But there's something different when they're playing against, you know, Connor McDavid, and you know, you have these players that people know, that people want to support. You have the Kachuk brothers that everybody is talking about. You know, my husband came home, he's like, "Do you know about the Kachuk brothers?" And was like, "I'm upset. Like, I love them. They're my new favorite, blah, blah, blah." Like, it's just fun. These storylines are fun. People love watching. And there were people that never in a million years would have turned on the NHL All-Star game. Never, to watch this. And I think the NHL, which doesn't normally do things right, they are like the king of like, we're gonna have our All-Star game like the same night as the Super Bowl. Like, that's like something that the NHL would do. Like, they are just so oblivious to things that it's nice to see them doing something right and something that the fans love. And I think other, you know, obviously Four Nations isn't going to work for other sports. You know, I mean, you could do, I know they've talked about doing like USA versus foreigners for basketball, which would be fun, but to be honest with you, like, that's a lot of star power on the other side for US to compete against. But this was just fun. Like, it's to be able to watch star players put on a USA jersey was awesome. And I know Kylan doesn't necessarily agree with me. This was by far the best All-Star weekend of any sport that's been had this year. Better, way better than football. No one cares about a flag football event. You know, par maybe the dunk contest, because the dunk contest is always fun to watch, but that's just one segment of the entire weekend. You know, this was a huge game, and it's really fun that it's a year before the Olympics and we can start teasing it. And, you know, I think the NHL is going to be really hard pressed not to let these guys play in the Olympics next year, seeing how much star power and how much publicity that this brought to the NHL.
I mean, I think you're hitting on it, right? Like, the reason why it was so good is because, you know, unlike the other three sports, I mean, other than baseball, right? And football, like the other, you know, the NHL and the other leagues for some reason don't want the crossover appeal that happens when you let your players play for their countries. And so, you know, nationalism is great when it works. That's why soccer works. I mean, the Premier League works because all that nationalism and all that other stuff. So, like, nationalism is great when it's on your thing. And like I said, it was a great showing for the NHL, right? Because like Morgan said, it doesn't happen. It hasn't happened in the last 10 years. So these, you know, it was juiced because of that. Like I said, they had a mini Olympics, right? And so I fully understand that. And hopefully they'll get to play. All accounts, it looks like they will play next year. The
Yeah, they
professional
were,
hockey players.
for what it's worth, they were supposed to be able to play in the last Olympics, but then it was like COVID, and they were like, no, you cannot go, and possibly bring COVID back and then ruin the Stanley Cup. So hopefully next year in Milan, they will be able to go, and it will be just as exciting as, if not more
Right.
exciting than the Four Nations Cup was.
Right, and so this is the point I want to make. Like the NBA, the one thing that they get right is that they know how to market their players. Right, the other three leagues don't do it as good as the NBA. Right, now you could say that some of that is Jordan, some of that is, you know, they lean into the culture way more. They lean into the fact that their league is black, and like they lean
I
into it.
also think something that you can't take for granted is that they're the one sport, baseball kind of too, but that they don't have anything covering their faces. They're just them while they're playing. So you get to know them as a human. Whereas like football, hockey specifically, football more because, you know, whatever, but it's hard sometimes to make a connection with a player when you really don't know what they look like. They look like they're wearing a robot suit.
But I also think it's hard when you don't really you know, Sidney Crosby is one of the best players in Ovechkin, right? They're in two of the biggest, well, not even the biggest markets, but at least big cities, right? So it is a shame that Crosby, especially with all that appeal that he has in this state that I live in, and in the DMV area, that they are both not bigger than they should be. Like, and that's what I'm saying, right? That's an indictment.
I disagree with that a little bit. I think that in the hockey world, both of those people are as their gods.
Right. But I'm talking about crossover appeal. That's what I'm saying. Like,
but I don't think I disagree with you. That I think that because you're so ingrained in the NBA world, you think that some of these players have bigger crossover than they do. There are people that you name that I couldn't pick out on the street, and I'm a sports fan. I'm not saying I'm an NBA fan, but there are people like, you know, I think that if I walked past Luka Doncic, I don't think I would turn my head. Like I know what he looks like, but I don't think I would turn my head, you know.
Right, but I'm not. But I'm not talking. I'm talking about like they shouldn't have like those two are really big and they're big international names, right? I'm not saying that they need to have like a Messi type of crossover appeal or a David Beckham
Yeah.
crossover appeal. I'm just saying that they should be bigger names in the country that they play in than just in the hockey world, right? Like there should be some marketing around both of them, and there
Like,
is.
you don't think if you went up to any sports fan that they would not know who Alex Ovechkin is? I'm
No,
honestly asking because I would say anybody that watches sports in America knows who Alex Ovechkin is, even if they don't watch hockey.
but I'm saying that here's what I'm saying, Morgan. Like I'm saying that the NHL doesn't and the NFL doesn't either. Neither does baseball. They do not market their star players the way they should. In the hockey world, yes. But I'm saying, as I said earlier, the median age of a hockey fan is 49 years old, right? Why is it that the NBA has the youngest audience, right? It's the crossover appeal. So if you want to have a younger audience, I'm saying you need to market your players better. And I'm just looking at two players that I know those two, Ovechkin and Crosby, everybody knows whether you watch sports or not. That's what I'm saying, right? Now I couldn't pick them both out of a lineup if Crosby was to walk by me right now, he wasn't in a Penguins jersey, I wouldn't know who he was. That's what I'm saying.
Alex Ovechkin, you probably would just because you'd be like, who is that monstrous of a human being? But Crosby, I can understand that. But I think a lot of that so much is, these players, it's the foreignness of it too. I think that, so many of the best players in hockey are not American and they have no interest in becoming American household names. They don't care.
But as you know, right, with marketing, you can do with good marketing, you can do anything. I'm not saying that they want to be household names, but they play in a sport that by all accounts, because the average age group is 49, is about to die once those people die. So and you illustrated the point, right? If you're not in a hockey household, you won't like hockey. So that is a problem for your league, right? So that's what I'm saying, right? You should be doing more of this, and you should be doing advertising. Like, I should not have to be a hockey or a sports fan to know who Crosby is, right? If no one watches sports, that's what I'm saying. They should know. I don't know if he's got I'm not saying they need a shoe deal, but just the advertising. Baseball needs to do it better. NFL needs to do it better too. The advertising just needs to be better. Like wearing helmets is not an excuse, right? Like you should be able to have players that bring in audience. And if the only thing you can bring an audience in is when you have Canada versus USA in hockey, which is great, but I'm of the mindset that, like you said, stories make good games. So, I think they should be leaning into this, right? People know who the Kachuk brothers are. Lean into the advertisement. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. All righty. Well, we have one more. Was Missouri's head coach Dennis Gates wrong for telling students not to storm the court after they beat Alabama on Wednesday night? I think this comes down to everybody's personal opinion. Everybody has a different opinion on court storming. I see no problem with it. I think it's fun. If I went to a school that had a huge win and I was in college, you better freaking believe I would have stormed the court. I agree. I just don't see any problem with it. Again, I think you have to make sure that the players don't get hurt. And I think that they've made a really good, they have a good system in place for keeping the opposing players away from this. And I just think it's fun. And besides that, if you don't think it's fun, it's generally the older generation that, doesn't think that court storming is fun. I think that there are certain games that call for it. And I think this game definitely called for it. So, but again, it's a difference of opinion and for different people.
Right. Well, I think after the last segment, we're going back to normal. I agree with you. I think he was. I get it. You want to save money, but you're Mizzou basketball, right? Like it's really just Mizzou basketball, football, sometimes volleyball. So I mean, and he was talking about we need to save, and the later comment he was talking about saves money for the NIL. But for me, right, like nobody is coming to Missouri as an athlete unless you're paying them. So I mean, And I think court storming is great. I mean, you get to show, hey, we're passionate. You should come here because we're
Make
passionate.
it part of your budget every year. You have one court storming a year, something like that. And again, I think the fines for court storming are also stupid. I think that's the NCAA trying to.
But that's the SEC. That's the I think it's just the SEC that
is it just the SEC?
That's I could be wrong, but I feel like it's just the SEC because I don't hear about fines other than in the SEC when the SEC does it. But the SEC, as we know, is very old school. We saw it with Nick Saban and Jalen Hurts and that whole thing. So, but I think Mizzou, Dennis Gates was wrong here. He should let his students have fun, and he missed a great advertising opportunity. Right? Neither one of us are advertisers, but we're in this field, right? And we know what makes things is the advertising. I mean, think about what that does. We beat Alabama. The students were passionate. You should come here. We're paying you a lot of money to come here, but you still should come here because of how passionate our fans are. That's all I'm saying. But moving right along, shout out segment. Morgan, you got any shout outs?
Shout out to my mother-in-law and my mom for throwing me an amazing baby shower last weekend. It was very fun. My mom then came and helped us clean the house, get ready for baby. So we're 5 weeks away. So it was it was very nice. And we had a lot of fun. So shout out to them.
I'm keeping the mama theme going. She won't see this anytime soon, but shouts out to my mom. Mrs. Watson, her birthday is today, so shouts out to her. Another year wiser, so shouts out to her for that. And then we will have a great birthday. I mean, she doesn't want to do anything, but we're gonna have a good time celebrating her this weekend. So shouts out to her.
Oh, happy birthday!
Yes. And I think that does it for. Shouts out to Philadelphia for having a relatively calm, except for like 2 incidents, parade last week. So good for us. Do better for those two incidents. That could have been better, but good. In comparison to what happened last time at the Chiefs parade, good time was had by all and relatively safe event. So that was good. So shouts out to law enforcement, all the people that made that happen safely. So he's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. Probably the quickest segment we're gonna do because Morgan has 5 minutes before she gotta get off here.
I actually don't have anyone for this week on either of them. So Kylan, it is all you.
All right, cool. So my first he's not him. I've referenced him already, PK Subban. Now I totally get, right, that because everybody has been dogging the NBA and its product the last few weeks, it has become popular for people, especially irrelevant players now that they've retired, to come and talk about why their sport is better, essentially, and why people should watch their sport. And PK, look, man, I totally understand. You want people to watch hockey because outside of when they're putting on the mini Olympics, other than Morgan and some of the more extreme hockey fans, no one cares. I totally understand that. But I said this about Ross Tucker, who was doing it, who was making this comparison between Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson and what they were doing and Paul George not playing. I don't know why y'all need to make your sport feel better. Make your sport look better by coming at the NBA. I think it's what I talk about, that crossover appeal, and that no one really cares about your sports outside of that. But I get it. But dog, I don't think it's not a flex because I know what you said. You said that we as hockey players we play through injury. That's not a flex, dog. We play through injury. That's not a flex. That's not a flex. I understand that the hockey audience might be a little bit more blue collar. I don't know how much blue collar it is because I don't really like to compare fandoms. But, I just don't think that you need to do that, especially as somebody that's only one of the more known hockey players because you dated Lindsey Vonn. You need to understand, right, that there's levels to this, right? I get it, right? They asked you a question. You felt the need to get on your pulpit to make your sport look better. But I'm going to tell you, right, that you guys really don't do a good job as far as trying to advertise your sport by making the NBA look worse. Because, again, like I just said, right, as evidenced by that All-Star game rating, the NBA has a pretty fixed audience that isn't going anywhere. And they have the youngest audience in sports, right? They get you got Mac McClung, who, like Morgan said, only comes out of the G League to dunk the ball, and that gets a billion streams. Like the other three leagues couldn't do that in their sleep, right? And so I'm of the mindset that, the NBA is the NBA. And I know everybody's trying to keep up with the NBA. A lot of people are upset because they got a $76 billion deal. And not many other leagues can do that. But that's what you can do when you have the 18 to 45-year-old strung, demographic basically strung up, and I'm of the mindset that PK, you can do better. I don't know. I'm sure Morgan will tell me how good you do on hockey broadcasts, but I just think that you don't need to belittle other sports to make your sport look good. I know that there's people that agree with you. They feel the NBA is soft, but I'm of the mindset that I'm never going to begrudge players for looking out for themselves and looking out for their bodies over an 82 game season, right? The All-Star game can be better. I'll admit that. But it doesn't need, like Morgan said, there was a lot of injuries. There's a lot of teams that are probably never going to let their players play a Four Nations thing again, right? Because and this is the problem with the NBA and the NHL All-Star games, right? They happen in the middle of their seasons, right? And so, these players are not going to go hard because they got a playoff push. Like the NBA and the NHL playoffs basically happen around the same time. So I'm of the mindset that that's what it is. I get it. You're appealing to that older demographic, but as a younger person who only knows you for being an okay hockey player and the person who dated Lindsey Vonn, and that's the only reason people know you because you showed up at Olympics next to Lindsey Vonn as arm candy. Like, I totally understand it, but hockey has other problems, dog. You do not need to bring attention to yourself by bringing this up. Like Morgan illustrated this, right? Hockey has a big problem. The NBA has a problem too, but hockey has a bigger problem with an average audience that's 49 years old. Maybe y'all should be solving that than worrying about what the NBA is doing. So my day on them also to keep up with the theme of the broadcast thing. I don't know what TNT was doing, man. Like, I don't know how you produce you're one of the best. You do a great job producing games. And then you do this at the All-Star game, right? You've got Draymond Green on there killing the product, Charles Barkley killing the product, Kevin Hart making jokes. I love Kevin Hart, but he was annoying me. So, like, as a basketball fan, I want to hear basketball, right? It's an all-star. It's supposed to be an exhibition of some of the best players in basketball playing basketball. And I want to see the basketball. It shouldn't have only been 20 minutes of basketball. TNT, the NBA, whoever organizes the all-star game now, hopefully it'll be better now that it's on NBC, but do better. So those are my two. Well, I don't know if you agree. I know we both hit people on the broadcasting aspect. So, but yeah, do better. But yeah, y'all have a great weekend. Morgan's got to go. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the basketball. Enjoy the college basketball. Getting close to March Madness.
We're getting super close. Yeah, sorry that I got to run. I got to go to Social Security office to change my name. So,
all right.
Very exciting, right?
Well, be safe. Have a great weekend. Y'all do the same. Enjoy the sports. Enjoy the weekend. Deuces.